Sweet boots.
Came out of nowhere. I didn't protect anything.
Karma has a mic. He didn't tell me it was raining.
Land on New Normandy beaches.
Okay, I'd like to call the East Amwell Township Planning Board meeting for October 16th, 2023 to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, this is a regularly scheduled meeting pursuant to the resolution adopted on January 11th, 2023, with a meeting notice sent to the Hunterdon County Democrat on January 18th, 2023. A copy of the agenda for this meeting was posted to the township website on October 12th, 2023, posted on the bulletin, and filed in the clerk's office on October 12th, 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Al Nardi.
Here.
Vice Chair Marnie Sexton.
Here.
Mayor Jenna Casper Bloom.
Here.
Mr. Jamal Qadri.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Dante DePiero.
Here.
Miss Natalie Nelson.
Here.
Miss Emily Deadweiler.
Here.
Mr. Richard Catanacci.
Here.
Mr. Michael Mills.
Here.
Miss Alexis Smith.
Here.
And Miss Megan Stanley.
Here.
Thank you. And let the record show Kristen Panos, I am here.
Thank you. Okay, we had a slight revision to today's agenda, so I'm assuming everybody on the board has it, and those in the audience, do you have the latest and greatest? And the latest is we added ordinance 23-16 to include the stormwater-related ordinances under new business. That was the only change. I'll give everybody a minute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I apologize, Al, that was on the drive. We do have the revised agenda in the back.
Back there. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's on there. Thank you. That was very nice.
Anybody have any questions regarding the modifications to the agenda? No? Okay, great. Could I get a motion to open to the public for items not on the agenda?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anyone from the audience care to speak on items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll consider that closed. Has everybody reviewed the minutes from September 18th, 2023? And if so, any comments? None? All right. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of September 18th, 2023?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Minutes of September 18th, 2023 are approved. Moving on. Number 7, the resolution for approval 2023-13, a resolution of East Amwell Township Planning Board confirming master plan consistency of ordinance 2023-11. Kristen, do you have that laying around somewhere?
I have 3 copies for your
All right.
signature.
Awesome. Has anybody, has everybody reviewed it or looked at it?
I'm looking at
No?
this.
You want to pass it around?
So all this is
Just-
just memorializing what the board voted on
Mhm.
last month, which was just determining that
This is-
the EDSC
Yeah,
ordinance
okay,
is
that's
consistent
right.
with the master plan and your
Right.
recommendations to the governing body.
I remember looking at this 3 days ago.
Yeah, no worries, just in case people haven't, pass it. And do we need a roll call with our vote on this one? Yeah.
Which one are we on?
We're on number 7, 2023, the resolution for approval. Resolution of East Amwell Township Planning Board confirming the master plan consistency of ordinance 2023-11.
I don't think you were here when we voted on that last week,
Yeah,
or last month.
right. Oh, yeah, Richard, you
That's why
were
you're
out.
like, what is this?
Yeah, never mind.
So 23-11, that was the EV part of
Yes,
one.
yes, from
That
last
was-
month's meeting.
That was
Yeah,
the
you were absent.
standard sort of, what was it, boilerplate that we were given. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we added that language too.
Those consistent, yeah, and that's perfect, yeah.
Mhm.
So it looks great to me.
Okay. Do we need a roll call with this one?
We can do a roll call.
Okay. Kristen?
Mr. Cadre,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Mills,
Yes.
Ms. Deadweiler,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor DePiero,
Yes.
Mayor Casper Bloom,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sexton,
Yes.
Chairman Nardi.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Moving on to number 8, new businesses. Let's see. Township Committee, on their last Thursday meeting, went through quite a few new ordinances. With that being said, I'm going to lump the stormwater ordinances together, and we'll hit the warehouse ordinance in a minute. So for stormwater ordinances, and I'm going off of our recommendations for the 2023 re-exam report, on number 7, where it says, update stormwater management plan and associated ordinances. Now, in my head, these all lumped together as falling under number 7. So the first one is 2309, stormwater ordinance for the master plan compliance review. Next one would be 2316, stormwater ordinance for master plan compliance review. And the last one is 2317, land management ordinance for master plan compliance review. Everybody has a copy of those ordinances that were put on your desk today, so if you didn't read them, they're right here now, but Alexis, you believe that that's correct? I can make mention of all these under new ordinances or modifications to ordinance in compliance with the master plan re-exam?
Yeah, so we can just talk about, like we did last month in regards to the ABFU, and we can talk about them in the same way, and just make findings why, if you believe that they are consistent with the master plan, and how so, and we'll do the same process that we did for the ABFU ordinance, vote on it, do a resolution next month. So,
Okay.
So what are the status of these currently that we're looking at? They're geared up for,
Yeah, we, at the township meeting on Thursday, we introduced them with a public hearing date of November. And just as a review, we have to do these stormwater ordinances. We're required by the state because we were a Tier B town. We're now a Tier A town. There are no more Tier B towns. So we had about, I think there's 11 in total, and some of them deal with trees and stuff and everything, littering, pet waste. And they're kind of one size fits all, so they're probably not, really meant for East Amwell, but we have to do it by the state guidelines, and we have to get them done by January. And our engineer wrote all these. And like I said, most of them are standard language, but he put them all together and everything, so.
And so as I understand it, it's not like we can tinker with these. Like, so if the question is like, in some other places, we've been looking at warehouses and make sure our language is tight. In this circumstance, I don't think that there's anything that we can change, given that state mandate.
because my impression of the way the stormwater ordinances are being interpreted is that one size fits all approach leads to, there are a lot of greener, cheaper, smarter ways to go about stormwater mitigation that are currently precluded from those regs. And so now we're going to make sure that more people are caught in that without the flexibility. Like when I was thinking about reevaluating the stormwater rules, it was maybe to have some practices that would better fit East Amwell that I was told we couldn't do. We had to do a detention basin. We couldn't do a swale. There were lots of things that like fit in farmland that, but
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think you're right about that, and I mean Jenna was saying the same thing to me when we talked about it before. Is it doesn't really, some of these things don't fit very well. The thing I'm not sure about, and I don't know if our professionals could add anything, I don't know that we have any discretion though to even use alternatives.
well, the
are we
engineer has discretion.
in implementing the ordinance or in codifying the ordinance? Because I like you would like to find some discretion or some way for us to make this more fitting for East Amwell.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure whether we have that kind of flexibility. I mean, is it the kind of thing we can ask the state more about? I mean, I know this was sort of dropped on us, and I don't know enough about the process to know if there's someone to push back on and say, you know, is there a menu of other options we can do, all of which will prevent flooding and, you know, do these come from DEP or do they come from,
Yeah,
another state source?
I think most come from
Most
DEP,
DEP.
and we have to go back with them, like with the tree harvesting one. We're supposed to pass it by January, but DEP hasn't given us the standard language yet of what they want us to say, so.
I mean, do you think there's time, Jenna, for us to, you know, after our discussion today with the planning board, to reach out to DEP and find out about that? Because if January is the approval date, because this board, I mean, do we have time for this board? No, this board would meet after, so I guess we could do it in November, right? If this board acted in November, the township committee would still have time to approve something to be effective January.
We'd have to reintroduce, and then we'd have to relook at it.
Is it possible that this is intended as a floor, and then there's an opportunity to add additional?
Or amend.
Well, but the floor,
Yeah, but the floor is
might be
crazy.
the problem, right?
The
If it's like
floor
a
is-
detention
it's-
basin, to use that
You know,
example.
they're basically saying everything counts as impervious surface, and you need to come up with a treatment for quality and quantity that meets that volume. And so I think the problem is the plug and play options that are a predictable path to a permit are all like what you'd see
Like urban
for a
farm.
shopping mall.
Yeah,
Wait.
like, yeah,
Right,
And if you've got a house in the middle of a farm field, you could ameliorate that stormwater with a gentle swale that would capture
Right.
the first 4 inches of rain and infiltrate it. But I don't think the engineers aren't calculating that. There's no plug and play option for green infrastructure alternatives.
Well,
So
when
it's
I'm-
incredibly costly, and I don't know that it's environmentally beneficial.
But if we, you know, offer the gentle swale, I guess then the question is the state gonna take that?
No,
Accept
yeah.
that? What the answer
see,
is?
if-
And
if
I don't
the
think they
ordinance
will.
is saying we
Right.
can't, so the state
Right.
says no, if our ordinance says no, and I think it would defeat the flexibility, and that's
Right.
why
Right.
I'm trying to see whether this would be the juncture for us to explore whether there's any flexibility, I'll use that word again, because we're being bumped into the different tier.
Yeah, and Paul, who's our engineer, he's also our stormwater compliance person. He's very into stormwater. You know, he has said that there's really no options for appeal, and that, you know, towns have complained that this is how people lived in like certain towns. But DEP is reacting to EPA, and they're saying stormwater pollutants come from public roads and DPW facilities, and they all have to be regulated the same way. And that's the reason why two DEPs, you know, they gave us a grant of $75,000, so we can start implementing this stuff. I mean, they realize this is quite an undertaking for a small town like us. So,
But Jamal's saying
Yeah.
it's also an undertaking for an individual farm owner. Right?
Well,
Right.
there's multiple components of that whole system thing, right? There's things like how you store your de-icing stuff, and how you manage and how you know, deal with creation of impervious surfaces, for lack of a better word.
Right.
Some of the stuff, like maybe how we manage de-icing, maybe that's not as crazy. I don't know. But
I mean, procedurally, I guess we could, I don't know, I mean, since we're making recommendations, right, to the township committee, I guess the planning board could recommend this if this is what's required with no wiggle room, but also maybe suggest if there are any options that are available for our town or for other rural towns, that's explored before the township committee vote. I mean, that way wouldn't slow anything down, but there might be a chance for an inquiry.
Is that anything more than a phone call to your engineer? I mean, it seems like he probably knows the answer.
yeah, I mean, I think we just reach out to Paul, yeah, and he's responsive, yeah.
And he's
we can
gonna
do
know.
that. Yeah, he'll-
I mean,
yeah,
It's not
he's-
like you have to call
Right.
No, he-
DEP
yeah.
and ask them, he's gonna know the answer, which I think I know the answer.
Yeah, if this is
Yeah.
based on the new,
Yeah.
like storm, I'm not gonna pretend to be an engineer. If these are based on the new storm water regs,
Yeah, I
I
got that.
imagine that these
Yeah.
are required.
Yeah,
That's what I
DEP
call
told
it.
me the only
Yeah.
flexibility was that I could pay into a mitigation fund that would do the requisite amount of capture at another
Yep.
site.
Right,
If I didn't want to do
as
it
if
on
that
our site.
program with freshwater wetlands has ever worked, right? They've got that freshwater wetlands mitigation bank, and if you do here, you can do it
I don't
somewhere
know how
else.
that works.
Look,
It
I can
seems to
tell
me
you,
if it's not in the same
doesn't-
watershed,
that
it's
doesn't work
apples
at all.
and oranges.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's happened somewhere else, it, may or may not work, and so
But it sounds like this is a state issue.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't know if the state has, because I haven't seen the regs, whether there's any kind of choice involved, or whether it's literally every town just must adopt it. And that may be the case, but I don't know.
So, may I ask you a question, Jamal? Are you saying that it's just, of the three ordinances, the only one you're objecting to, not objecting to, the only one you have questions about is the stormwater one? And your primary concern, or the primary thing you want to see if we can improve, is related to stormwater capture, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, I
I'm
guess,
just trying to understand the scope.
yeah, just the, where we're expanding the number of projects that are gonna get caught up in this reg that has unanticipated consequences. That's my only concern, that where we're going from major development to minor development.
So someone adding onto their house gets caught up into this now. Someone building a single-family house gets caught up into this now, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
they-
we're building a
like,
single family, we got
yeah.
caught up into it.
No, I'm
Yeah.
asking the question.
Right.
Well, I mean, now my proposal would be that, we can provide these kind of comments back to the township committee, and I think, already I'm sure, Janet, I'm sure is willing to call the engineer, or I would, and ask the question. And that way, where the schedule's intact, then we can see if there are options.
And if we
Okay.
want to be nitpicky, is this, our sole role here is supposed to be, is this consistent with the
Right.
master plan?
Right.
And I guess my question would be, is this way of mitigating water consistent with our master plan? Or is our master plan calling for less intrusive,
That's a good question.
more green ways to do this? If it's inconsistent with our master plan, then we need to
Yeah.
walk that line. If it's consistent with the master plan, technically, we don't have more to do. And I think we're all saying this, I think we all want the same thing, I'm just,
Yeah, Township Committee can talk to, the engineer, and when we
Report
meet
back,
again
yeah.
in November,
Yep.
we might have some possible modifications to the ordinances, like we did for
Yeah.
electrical vehicles.
Alexis, does it matter for our review that this is not an amendment to the land use portion of our ordinances?
Yeah, so in theory, right, it only needs to come here, the planning board, for when it's involving the land use ordinances. So, but if the planning board, if that's the way that the township committee sees fit, because the planning board is who handles the reexamination report, then it's fine to do it that way. But yes, technically, when it's an amendment to the land use ordinance and the land use regs.
Yeah, and I think to your point, this kind of discussion is helpful, because when people voice
Yeah.
concerns about it, I think it, can generate the township committee to reach out and get some more info, so I think it's helpful to do.
Anybody else? All right. Next one is for new businesses with a 2312, the warehouse ordinance for master plan compliance review. Alexis typed up a memo, which was on the drive, with her recommendations and whatnot, but bottom line is the Township Committee, during the meeting on Thursday, deleted the word warehouse from 92, 98, and 92, 99, which we appreciate as a board. But then going through those two ordinances, there's a whole slew of things on there that we really need to take a look at, like, car washes and restaurants and things of that nature. And I have some documentation that I can pass out to the board to here. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to take a look at it.
I told you it was Pandora's box.
I'm sorry?
I told you that was Pandora's box.
Yeah. It's like, let's peel the onion. But there's some things on there that are, car wash. I don't think that's appropriate for our township. But we absolutely need to go through the list of many items on here and make recommendations to township committee and see if we can eliminate some of these. Or get some definitions like
What is this list from?
our ordinances.
It's all in our
But
parking.
these
Oh,
are,
on the parking.
Yep.
but are these, correct me if I'm wrong, are these just the ones where in the parking ordinance it says how much is required? Or did you go through the permitted uses?
No, I didn't go through permitted
Because if you
uses.
go through the permitted uses of all the different, I started to do that and like,
Yeah,
put my hands up and
Mhm.
said, okay, this is another project.
exactly.
So did you do that? No.
No, I didn't do that. No, I'm not.
I just wanted to. Sorry.
But no, it's
Teasing
fine.
up a little bit.
But there's a lot of things on here that we absolutely need to look at as a board and make recommendations to. And like I said, the mortuary, who knows what kind of chemicals they use there, car wash,
Yeah.
fast food restaurants. I mean, I really don't want to, McDonald's or Wendy's or anything like that in our town. But this is for the board to look at. We will definitely be talking about it come November. Township Committee now has a copy. I will hand to the people in our audience, and they can get caught up on what we're looking at now.
You might want to kick it over to Board of Health too.
Board of Health,
To
you
have
got
a good
it.
review of it
Yep.
too.
Yeah.
Good idea, thank
And
you.
I'm thinking that we need to go look to see which of these are defined
Mm-hmm,
and also which of these are allowed in all the different, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, it's a big ball of wax.
Okay, but
But that's why
it
we're on
needs
the
to be
board,
done.
right?
Yeah, no, it needs to be done. I'm just making sure I'm understanding the scope.
I got you, Emily.
How many
We're-
layers
yeah,
there are here?
We're on the same page.
This also come from the state?
No, this is, the background on this is we were asked to make sure that warehouses couldn't be
Mhm.
backdoored into the township. When we did that, one of the things that was pointed out is that warehouse, in the parking, in the area that, the chapters and whatever that says how many parking spaces you need.
Yeah.
There was, it said you need this many parking spaces for a warehouse. And if we have that, then somebody could argue, well, you intended to have warehouses, so.
Right.
So we said, let's strike that. And Mr. Nardi says, wait a second, all these other things are in there. Maybe we should look at these too. So we'll fix the parking in
Well,
the warehouses,
Right,
but
but we
now you
have,
open
Oh,
Pandora's.
so we're
Yeah.
not looking at what the parking requirements are. We're looking at the uses and whether or not.
right,
Appropriate.
we don't want to give anybody a foothold. And it's like, hey, you have, fast food restaurants in there, or.
Like, and for example, tennis courts, was it up in Stockton? There's a big to-do about them wanting to put tennis courts in there, and they're fighting that. And it's not just tennis courts, it's a tennis complex.
Mm-hmm. Yep, food for thought.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
and I think overall, it's a healthy thing for a town to periodically look back at the ordinances
Mhm.
and say, do these really reflect the value of, keeping it rural in East Amboy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really good project for us to be on. I'm sorry that there's so many things that you found already, Al,
No.
but you're exactly right. This is why you look through it and why you
Yep,
keep
No,
adjusting.
this is really good. Yeah, that you did that. The
So,
car
Thank
wash
you.
is,
As everybody knows, if you don't have your ordinances say what you want, then you'll get things you don't want.
exactly. Exactly. And I will forward this onto Township Committee, the memo that Alexis typed up on behalf of her firm, and other suggestions about warehouses, and let's try to really eliminate it the best we can. But expect this coming to Township Committee this week. Now that I have a East Amwell letterhead, I can make it official. Any other questions from the board on this before I open up to the public? Okay, seeing none. Can I get a motion to open to the public regarding new businesses?
So,
Can I get a second? No, Dante, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone? Linda?
Linda Ranf, East Amwell residents. Just wanted to confirm on what we've got here, because I am looking through this now. And so what we're saying is, if we're not looking to have that particular use in East Amwell, then
You want a copy? Yeah.
I think I have it.
Do you? Okay.
Yep, I got them all over the place.
No, that's not the right one. This one.
This one.
She has the master list.
yes.
She is the master.
That's the new one.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was
Those are
just
ones
talking about.
Of specific concern.
Right.
That's that summary list that you're always asking for.
Right. That's another one.
Another one, because you
Made to
know,
order.
when Emily was talking before about the warehouse, she says, well, we wanted to be careful that we didn't end up with manufacturing, and I'm looking here at assembly operations
Exactly.
and at finishing operations. And so what we're looking to is to take this down to something that we really want to have. And this is great because you've already given a preliminary of what you see to do, and that's wonderful. And that's what I'm sort of asking, is are we talking about the township, for us to tell you that we're really not looking to have these kind of things?
That's correct.
And then I had one question under there that really, I didn't know parking, farm and parking spots on a farm. I mean, I wasn't sure. I have like multiple fields that don't have any parking spots because they're all farm. I wasn't sure what they were trying to identify as having 2 parking spaces per farm. I just didn't understand it.
That's a very good question, and I don't know the answer to that one.
I can guess, not guess, but you do have to, you know, if somebody's building something, say you want to make sure that there's sufficient parking, whatever it is, so that you don't have off-street parking.
Right.
So imagine somebody saying, we're putting a new farm in, or we're subdividing this, and now we're gonna put something here. You don't wanna end up with off-street parking, so I know it doesn't make sense to say a farm must have parking, but this is a minimum, and they're just saying, they basically don't want people to have to be on the street parking.
Understand completely, but when I look at, you know, like I've got, say, 15 acres of farm, and they might be 2 lots, and I'm saying, I have to specifically identify a parking spot on these? You know, they're not even near a street, half of my stuff, because it's all behind.
Don't
So
worry, your
anyway.
grandfather.
Thank you so
There's a
much, it's
couple
good
of
to be old.
I'm
So,
joking. By the way,
you
that
very
was a
much.
joke. That was not.
I didn't think it was a joke either.
Anyway,
So anyway, thank you. I was under, that's, I'm happy that we're doing this. These are types of things that I love to see because I can understand and wrap myself around it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Could I get a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Chairman, can we
Yes,
just
ma'am.
make sure we determine if we think this ordinance is consistent with the master plan?
The
At
storm.
least related
Yes.
to at least relating to the, from my understanding, we're just working on the warehouse
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
for right now.
Yeah. This is consistent with the re-exam of the master plan, especially the warehouse. Thank you so much. And like I said, your memo will go up to Township Committee this week. Trying to put all this to bed as soon as possible. Okay, moving on. Unfinished business in the subcommittee reports. Dark Skies is up next. Morning, anything? Megan?
That's all I have to say about this.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I reviewed a copy of the proposed revisions, and I kind of compared it to some other towns that I've worked with and that have similar ordinances, and I said this is pretty stringent. You know, I think it covers all the bases. Just some of the things that I did maybe flag just to look at is just considering certain businesses that may require lights on sensors, timers, just for, you know, keep wild animals away, you
Right.
know, for safety purposes, that type of thing. But you know, other than that,
Okay.
pretty thorough.
Good. Good. Any questions regarding?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just had a question about, so like when it says in the ordinance, like floodlights and spotlights are discouraged, but if they are used, like, how does that work for like, I mean, this is, like, how does it work for enforcement? I mean, there's nothing, that's just basically us stating what we'd like, right? Nothing, it doesn't really mean we can do much with it, right?
I mean, that's typically, the problem with these is always enforcement. And
Yeah.
It's usually like someone complains or something like that, but you typically don't have someone driving around at night, you know, making sure everyone's lights are at certain lumens, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just because
Yeah,
that language is specifically for res and agricultural.
Mhm.
So for commercial,
gotcha.
it's, and, you know, like if we had Diamond Nation, which we don't, but it's,
Oh, yeah.
it's, not.
Good
And
example.
that's something we have to decide, like, is that okay? I mean,
Yeah.
what I'm thinking about is, you know, if you have an older person, has a porch, you want them to be able to have a motion light
Mhm.
so that they
Yeah.
don't walk into their house in the dark. Whereas, like, a big facility,
Commercial.
right, that,
Gotcha, yeah.
except unless it's security, lights are off from 11 to 5. So that's why that more generous language is
Gotcha,
there.
okay.
But it is just residential now. And so, and after I got your comment, which I thought was really good, but Megan said, you know, you wanna make sure you can have security lighting in a barn or whatever. I think
that's good.
that's allowed under this.
Okay.
Because that provision is under the residential agriculture, and it says whenever possible, outdoor lighting installations should include timers, dimmers, and or motion sensors.
Okay, because
So
yeah,
you
there was
could
there
have-
was a certain area where it looked like it was more yeah, I just
There
wanted to make
is.
sure that it was
Right,
yeah,
and that's for the,
consistent. Yeah.
but I didn't, it took me a while to.
Okay.
I still don't think it's, I mean, I think maybe it could still be clearer. But
So Alan,
Yes.
Marnie, are we gonna go through this tonight, or are we just asking if we have any more comments on this? Because there's some particulars that I wanted to raise, if that was your intention.
Raise them now,
I
yeah,
think- yeah, I think
yeah,
we should.
because I want to
Mhm.
We're
push
trying
this.
to finalize a draft.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, if we go to, A, capital A, you know, in the first sentence where it says, you know, the purpose includes to preserve East Amwell's investment in farmland preservation. I think that should say, you know, open space and farmland preservation, because we've invested in both of those, and I think the lighting, preserves those. Let's see, looks like, so D 3 or 4, it says starts with externally illuminated building or property.
D3 or 4?
So let's see.
It was 4, I think it's now 3. Oh, no, it was 3, now it's 4.
Yeah, it's got,
Okay, I found it.
if you look at the red line,
Yeah, I
it's,
got it.
yeah, D4 now. So it says this subsection contains standards which apply only to residential and agricultural lighting, and then 4 says externally illuminated building or property, identification, signs, advertisements for approved home occupation, agricultural use. So my question is, are all of those required to point downward? Or is the only limitation that they have to be turned off by 11 p.m.?
No, I think, let me just check. Because, so this subsection C, this subsection contains standards which apply to all outdoor lighting. That's on page 1. And then it discusses how it faces, how far it illuminates.
So
So
D,
that would be the overarching, I think.
so D is supposed to be in addition to C.
That's
All right,
how
well-
I would read it. but-
Well, all right, so I think we should probably make that clear if
Mhm.
it's not, because I think that's helpful. And my
And how would you do that, Dante? It
Uh,
says,
well,
contains.
somewhere here in the structure of this, I guess maybe C could say, you know, this section applies to all outdoor lighting. I don't know. In D, either C could say, so it may apply in conjunction with the others, or D could say, you know, this doesn't negate the requirements of C. I mean,
Yeah.
and anything that I think would just make sure that C is always there, because I like your point. In that same one that I was talking about, is there anything here that prevents neon signs? Because I didn't see neon mentioned, but we have all sorts of signs here that seem like they could be on in various circumstances, and you know, I don't see us as like a neon sign town. So, like in this one, for example, this D4, this says externally illuminated signs or advertisements at the location of a business, for example. So, I would imagine we would not allow neon signs.
And I think in our sign ordinance, it's probably forbidden, but that doesn't mean we couldn't also put it here.
Yeah,
Right.
then maybe if we reference it here, just to make sure that it's clear, because I had a little trouble when I read through this, figuring out exactly what these categories apply to. So I guess in 6, just a couple below that, so we're still in D6, floodlights, spotlights. So they say floodlights and spotlights are discouraged, but if used, all floodlights and spotlights shall be shielded or aimed downwards so as not to emit any light above 90 degrees. So is there a reason why 90 degrees? Is there some leakage? So if you point it down, the light still might diffuse
Right.
up to 90? Is that the problem?
I think so. I mean, this is like language from model ordinances, but I don't know, because I'm
Okay.
not a
So,
lighting engineer, but that's my guess.
I mean, my question would be, if it already says it shall be shielded or aimed downward, is that sufficient? Are we better protected if it also says nothing above 90 degrees? Because 90 degrees seemed high to me, right? Because if downward would be, 45 or less,
Right.
90 seems to be horizontal. So, I just wonder about that. And then in same letter, 7. This seems to have suggestive language, but not mandatory language. It says, wherever possible, outdoor lighting installations should include timers, dimmers, or other motion sensors. I would say, if we want to have these, I'd say, I mean, you already have whenever possible. So, are we saying these are mandatory?
So I think this is something we have to decide.
Mm-hmm.
This is more gentle because it's, residence and agriculture. But if we, as a board, if we feel like, no, it should be, your porch light must be on a timer or a dimmer or a motion sensor, then we can change that.
Or is it, or is this required to be turned off at 11? I mean, with the way this is written, I'm never sure what's applying to what. So, does 4? 4 doesn't really apply to like a porch or a light.
No, but 7 would.
Mhm.
And the 11 is in the section that's about not residential and agriculture, in commercial.
I mean, I'm not sure because it's hard to see all the circumstances. So I'm not sure. So this is saying for residential and agriculture. I mean, I'll note that it would at least be stronger if it's whenever possible. They shall do this, but because whenever possible should is really has no force. Unless we're not sure what it applies to, so I don't know.
Well, no,
I just
I
raised
think,
as an issue.
I mean, yeah, I think we should decide whether we want it to be admonition or regulation. I mean, that's kind of up to you guys.
I mean, the other thing is if they're all facing down, then it doesn't matter so much. I mean, so
Well, it matters to bugs and birds and things like that. Well, bugs mostly.
on your porch, and so for birds, for example,
Not birds, I should have
Oh.
said that, bugs.
and where's,
Moths.
Oh, it's
so
great.
it attracts moths to there, and the problem is,
It messes up their reproductive systems and their like navigational systems. I
Well,
mean, I don't know, is it like,
is that solved by the 11 p.m. turn off rule?
yeah, because there's
Because
no light.
That's a good question.
what I mean is that seems sufficient. I mean, what I'd say overall is, if we didn't want to like regulate and have a million scenarios, it would seem to me that for residential, agriculture, everything should face down and, turn off at 11. And if it's a security thing, then it can be turned on by motion detector. And then when the movement goes by, it turns off. So maybe that does away with all the needs for all the language. I don't know. But for me, that's how I think of it.
Well, I think you could just, instead of making it encouraging, you could make it mandatory. I think that's what you're saying. Don't make it,
No, I was saying the whole approach might be simpler and clearer and not seem so draconian if it were just a couple basic principles like that. but I mean, for discussion, I don't know.
Megan, what's your thoughts on that?
So this is referring to residential and agriculture, you said?
I think he's saying give everyone the same rules.
Well, I mean, I'm just in this section, so, but overall, I think it's probably so, unless it's, I mean, so I'll restate it, as I'm thinking through it in my own head. I mean, for light pollution, you mainly don't want it to go up to start off, so
Right.
if everything's down facing, and if it's turned off at 11, because presumably you don't need it, and if you have some kind of security issue, you know, that those be mandatorily on a motion sensor, so that, you know, if you have that on your driveway, someone drives down the driveway, comes on, or at your house, but other than that, I mean, it's only on for 15 seconds or 20, 30 seconds, that it would seem to me those hit the major goals that we wanna achieve. And if we do that, it might make it simpler than all these scenarios, and then is it mandatory or permissive, and people feeling like I don't know what all the rules are because they're so detailed.
So, let me ask you a question. So right now, there's a set of rules for commercial that says these are all mandatory. And there's a set of rules for residential and agriculture that says, we'd like you to do this, please. Sort of put it in layman's language. And what you're suggesting,
Can I just, one caveat to that? That's exactly right, except everybody has to have downward facing lights. Like, that's not, there's nothing optional about that. It's just the question of you must turn off at 11, or you can, if you're a good citizen, have it on a motion detector after 11.
I mean, I would think that, I can't, at first blush, I would think residents wouldn't have a problem having them face down, or, you know, using motion detectors for stuff at night. So I don't think folks would be upset with that, and they can speak up to it if not. And I wasn't sure about everything being down facing, because I thought there was someplace in here about a commercial sign that said you should have a top mounted one, but if it's not top mounted, then something else. So I wasn't sure whether that could be neon or be facing up. And also for businesses, it says, you know, they just have to be off when you close. And I'm thinking, so if you have a business that's on 24/7, that means you never have to turn your lights off. That doesn't seem to be a limitation either. So, I mean, I just figured I'd throw out the overall principles first. So
that's what I was trying to get at, what were the principles, and then
yeah,
go back
and then from
write,
that,
and then from there you can look at the drafting.
And what you're saying, I think the answer to that, I think might just be, I don't know that it's, light pollution is different if it's commercial or residential. I think we'd wanna have them both minimize the effect going upwards, and people don't really need it to go upwards anyway.
Well, and don't forget about the flag.
Yeah, where
That
did you
should
see
be
that it
illuminated.
was- Cause I missed that,
What
where
did
it
you-
was allowed to go upward, just so I can mark it, cause that was definitely not the
Sure.
intention.
So we could put a placeholder now. If you just keep going on, I'll come to it in a second, I'm sure. So, well, my next one is E2, sports and recreational lighting. So the sports and recreational stuff seems to be moved around in a bunch, or appearing in a number of places. And my first question was, this says that it shall comply with subsection C. So does C1 lowercase d intend to require sports and recreation lighting to be turned off at 11? Because it didn't seem to me to say
Yeah,
that.
C is the one that I said, those are the rules for all, on page 1.
Right, but so do you see anything in C1D that requires sports and rec lighting to be turned off at 11? And then I saw that section E5, which appears to regulate sports and rec lighting, says, does have a limitation, and if so, maybe that should be referenced here in this E2, because E2 only now references C.
And where was the other one that?
E5.
E5.
So E5 says, dawn to dusk lights are prohibited for commercial, sports, and rec facilities. So I think it probably takes a careful reading through to make sure how it works, but I think what the bottom line ought to say for sports and rec lighting is that should be off by 11 p.m. because even if you have a baseball game or something, it should go off at the same time as the other stuff. And then to answer your question, E4 says externally illuminated building identification sign at businesses shall be designed so they turn off no later than a half hour after closing. So my question is, you know, if
Should it be, but under no circumstances later than.
11,
Right.
right? At least
Yeah.
that would make that
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
consistent. And then on E5, dusk to dawn lights. So I read in the definition section that dusk to dawn lights are defined as lights that you turn on once at dusk and they just stay on continuously until dawn. So I was curious, is there a real need for that?
Right, I agree
Because
with
if
you.
there's not, I would suggest we don't allow those.
Dusk to dawn lights are
Yeah.
prohibited.
And
Yeah.
if the purpose perhaps is security, because someone was really worried, then I would say that what we'd say is, look, for any
On a
security
motion
lighting,
li- right.
put on a motion detector, because I think that would be sufficient.
But so, you're saying not get rid of E5, just make it universal?
I would say dusk to dawn lights are prohibited, period.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Not just for commercial recreation, for everything.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's where it goes,
Right,
but,
it's not probably.
yeah, but I think that should be the
Yeah.
bottom line, that would be my
Yep,
suggestion.
I think that
Um,
makes sense.
And then,
We actually did hear a complaint about that. With the telecommunications application, they were saying that building had a
Mhm.
light on that was
Mhm.
on all the time. And that's what they really objected to.
oh, right, that's
I
cell
remember.
tower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that
Mhm.
resident could see it from her property, which also would violate what
When the
Marty
leaves
was showing us
drop.
before, yeah.
Right.
So if you point that thing down, or you have that on motion, it should be good.
Mhm.
I agree with you. Yeah, in the definition of dusk to dawn lights, I would strike that if we get rid of that. The final thing was the definition of.
Wait, Don, just
Yeah,
a
sure.
question for you. If we're going to, say there are no dusk to dawn lights, don't we wanna define what those are?
Well, I think the rest of our language, I'm imagining, would say that light, of all lights you have to be turned off at 11 o'clock. Somewhere it would say, if you have to have a security light, then you shall have
Okay, so you're
motion
saying,
detector. And
we
that
just
way,
won't say dusk to dawn.
and then I
in
don't
the
think there is such a
ordinance.
thing, but that's, unless
Right.
someone
No,
disagrees.
that makes sense. No, that makes sense.
My final observation was, if you look at the final page on page 9, the definition of outdoor light fixture, there's some suggested language added in red. Outdoor light fixtures shall include devices used to illuminate both residential and commercial or similar structures. I would suggest using what we call in law the disjunctive, not the conjunctive. That is, we don't say both, we say or. So I would suggest it read, outdoor lighting fixtures shall include devices used to eliminate either residential or commercial greenhouses or similar structures. And that way, you don't have to satisfy all of those to be in the definition
Right.
of outdoor.
Yep.
So,
Yep, good.
thanks.
I have a question. Does any of this apply to Christmas lighting?
So there is one part in here, and actually, this didn't come up, but I was thinking about this. So it's, CD, which is, this is the part that
Ornamental.
applies to all lighting. And it says, other architectural, landscape, ornamental, accent, and decorative lighting and other direct light emissions shall not be visible above the roof line and shall operate by a timer which will turn the lights off no later than 11. So that would include Christmas lights.
So realistically, whether we agree with this or don't, I'm saying this. The headline is, planning board votes to not allow Christmas lights.
Well, I mean,
I'm
Christmas
just,
lights
I'm
off
just
at
kind
11.
of,
that's wrong.
I know, but I'm just trying to think about how, I'm not saying I agree with, I'm not making a statement on that, I'm just thinking, what is it what the law says, and we wanna make sure that it's practical for a homeowner who's already got a system. They put these Christmas lights up, they don't have a timer.
So I'm much more concerned about the elderly resident that has a porch light that doesn't have
Exactly.
a timer than I am about the Christmas lights. Just before you go to bed, unplug your lights. I mean, that's not that
No,
hard.
Well,
I agree
actually, the
with you.
timer's cheap.
I'm just trying to think about how realistically this kind of plays out, or do we write this the way it is ideal and practical, right? Which I think is what you're saying.
Well, so
It
is
sounds
this,
like
is the ornamental stuff suggested new language, or was that already in there?
Those are, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
Oh,
I
so
think
it's
that's
not
already
new.
there.
Yeah.
So we're not changing to do that.
Okay,
Yeah, I
because
think-
when you said about the roof line, people put those things and they're on all night.
Yeah.
They're on all night. And so, I mean, realistically,
Right, I mean,
What's gonna happen?
enforcement is another
Yeah.
question.
I mean, for example, I have a 30-foot
my business.
Christmas tree that has 2,000 lights on it. That is, I mean, people drive to see.
you gotta turn it off at 11.
And it's what,
You gotta turn it off at 11.
yeah, if I have to turn it off at 11, I'll turn it off at 11, but, because I don't need to see, I'm in bed by 8.
You probably need to sleep, in it, otherwise the lights will.
No,
catch
no,
you.
Well,
it's,
and
I
what
have,
Dante
you
just
can
said is,
say,
you were supposed to turn it off 11 last year, so.
but I mean, the simple, I mean,
It
I've
shows
never had
how
a
much
complaint,
we're
but just the opposite.
But I
People
guess
say,
that's the
"How
real
come your
issue,
How come
right?
your tree is not lit
Yeah.
this year?"
It's
That's always
commu-
the
No one's
issue.
gonna,
Yeah.
right.
If you sit
No
here
one's
long enough,
complaining
you'll-
about Christmas
Yeah,
lights.
nobody's
Yeah,
complaining.
I mean, my sense of it is if this kind of ordinance, would help to educate people and remind
Exactly.
them. And so, if we all think about that way, instead of just having stuff willy-nilly shooting up and bothering our neighbors or, getting in the sky so we can't see anything, I think it just bring more awareness. I'm not aware of anybody who's, had the Santa police come down on them
Oh.
because of a light, so.
Well, and just,
We don't have any police,
Just-
have you noticed?
Yeah, we don't have any police anyway, but that's another
just
question.
for some perspective, the reason this came to be is because there was concern about industrial size
Right.
greenhouses that would illuminate the sky
Right.
Yeah.
24 hours a day.
Which
And
we
so
do not
what we
want.
decided was, while we're thinking about that, let's
Let's,
also,
Well, but I mean, you raise a good point, because also you have to be consistent. We can't just say, oh, we
Right.
love that beautiful 30-foot Christmas
True.
tree with all
Yeah.
the lights, but we don't want this farmer to
Right.
have his his
Right.
greenhouse lit up. So
That's-
I think fairness for everybody is just, we're just trying to
turn the lights off
bring
at 11.
awareness. Yeah, turn them off at 11 and just face them down, and I
Mhm.
think most that really helps everybody. I like the best practice.
Exactly.
Well, if you're tinkering with this,
So he's, okay.
Send me your
If you're
notes.
gonna be tinkering with this, or I can send you what I have here, but I'd be happy to
okay,
answer any questions or make some suggestions if it's
okay,
helpful.
or we could just, I could share the document.
Yeah, I mean, I'll shoot this to you and you
Okay.
can tell me what you want, but if you want help.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Perfect. Anybody else? All
And
right.
And I'll assume a Christmas Eve exception.
How's Santa gonna find out?
I'm sure.
That's right.
Right. Got to give us a landing strip for the reindeer.
Christmas Eve will be the night we really have enforcement.
Now I'm
I'm
coming.
sure the
Yeah.
state police will be out
again
for
now
that.
that I know
Yeah,
about
right?
this.
100
And Parks and Rec is on, giving awards for the.
That's
That's
right.
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm gonna be organizing caroling now over at your house. Right in front of that big tree.
Okay. Let's move on with this. Let's open to the public for, can I get a motion to open to the public for the dark sky ordinance?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Public? Linda?
Linda Raft, East Amwell residents. Do we have a copy of the thing that you're discussing right now, or is that not ready to be published for us to read?
There's
Yeah.
copies on the back table.
It's on the back table. I was too scared, ashamed to get up and walk back there and see if it was there. Fine, that's my fault. My question was what you sort of mentioned, flag.
Mm-hmm.
You do have lights that go up for the American
American flag.
flag, or when I had a wreath up on the side of my house, up on the top, I had a light that went up and shone to the wreath that was up there. Or if you have anybody that's foolish enough to put Santa Claus and the reindeer coming across the top of the house, that's sort of up also. And I didn't know, I'll go get a copy of that and see if I'm, but I am concerned about the American flag and
There-
whether or not you can put a light.
There
Yeah,
is a
there's-
provision in here that you can light the flag, it
Right.
just tells you how to do it so you don't annoy your neighbors.
Right.
Thank you very much, and if I'd only read it, we wouldn't have this problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay.
Good question.
Could I get a motion to close to the public on the dark skies?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. let's move on to historic preservation. Richard, what do you got for us?
Well, you said there are two things here. One says review of historical preservation committee.
Yeah, well,
I
could be a typo.
This is, well, are we or are we not? The Historical Preservation Committee, as it presently exists, is in total disarray. I mean, everyone's resigned, the secretary's resigned. I don't know that we have a Historical Preservation Committee.
We do. Yeah, we just had the chair resign, and then the secretary left because she has a full-time job somewhere else, and it was quite a drive
Right.
for her. So we have a new secretary.
Oh, you have a new
Yeah, Amy
secretary.
Mills,
Okay.
and Will is
And do you
now
have
the
a new-
chair.
Do you have a new chairman?
I do.
Who's the new chairman?
Will Harris.
What?
Will Harrison.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah. So-
I just
Don't
didn't
go.
know what the,
We got lots of volunteers on there, about 8 or 9, so it's moving along.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So we haven't.
We'll take more though if anybody wants to volunteer, but yeah.
No, I'm not volunteering. And can I ask one other question in terms of the historical, because I was asked to monitor that committee, and I did monitor the committee, and the only thing they seemed to be interested in was a lease for the for the East Amwell Historical Society with the township, which of course is, I don't know what business the Historical Preservation Committee has to do with the East Amwell Historical Society. The two very separate entities. The East Amwell Historical Society is a 501c corporation, and it is not run or controlled by this council. They're obligated to follow the laws of the state of New Jersey and they haven't for 2 years, but that's another story. But and there was some talk, I thought, about doing away with the Historical Preservation Committee and making, I don't know, developing some sort of a committee that was, well, this is unkind.
Is it
But there's
factual?
was going to do something. I mean, it seems that for 10 years they haven't done anything. I mean, and that was the problem. I don't know. I mean, they're supposed to be giving input to the council and to us and to everyone else, and it was a coffee clutch. So let's hope that Will Harrison will change that, and or you need to have a committee that, or you need to put someone on the committee from the council or somewhere else that's going to make sure they do the job. That's all. Now getting back, now if you're talking about the, I guess the Historic it says Historic Preservation Committee, Richard Catanacci. I was the liaison, and the only thing I got from the Historical Preservation Committee actually was Renee did send a link to, and we have that, and that was good, because at least we now know what they had in terms of the East Amwell National Register of Historic Places, so we don't have to go reinventing that wheel, and you know, I viewed my job as getting all the information that we have together, so in one place, so that we can utilize it, in the best interest, and assiduously avoiding getting into the political realm of what qualifies and who should get what, and I mean, everybody pretty much knows what buildings are truly historic buildings, and none of them have been built in the last 100 years. All right, I mean, so you can start out with that. I mean, and we're not giving anything to anyone, as I understand it right now. Nobody's getting any help. I mean, people are buying historic buildings. Brian Giles just bought the Case Farm, and if you haven't noticed, that thing that was falling down is being totally restored. So that house, you know, I'm invited for cocktails on the porch as soon as the porch is finished. And there are people in the town who are willing to spend their money and resources to do this. They're not asking anybody for a nickel for it. And that's a good thing. I don't know that there's any inclination from, I mean, happy to hear from anyone, any inclination in this town to seek some sort of, how should I put it? Seek some sort of tax abatement or something for people who want to encourage people to do this. But that's the only way you can do it. I mean, there are people who are willing to come in and take a building, but they want something for it. They at least want some tax abatement or some special treatment for that. It's happening slowly in this town.
This is done.
And some people don't want it at all. Excuse me?
No, I'm saying this is, sounds to me like this is done, like it's,
Well-
there's not action to be taken right now.
Yeah, I know the inventory's up, and I think
is.
last month, or
Because it's
last
not
few weeks ago,
working.
Richard, we sent you some, there's some more documentation on our Google Drive under the planning board, where I think Tam provided Marnie some documentation, and we uploaded it, and I think you're aware of that as well, for historic preservation.
Say that again. What else was it?
During the last meeting in September, Tam provided Marnie some documentation on various areas within the township, and they were uploaded to our Google Drive under the planning board.
It's
Like the
supporting-
Wardsville.
The supporting documents for when different areas were designated National Historic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, as long as we have all the documents, that was my understanding that was my job. All right.
Yes.
To get all the documents together and
I'm saying there's not more to do right now.
what?
Doesn't sound like there's more to do right now.
There isn't any. I don't see anything more to do unless you're going to take a very active role in promoting, you know. I mean, there are a couple of places that are on the market. There's one individual who owns a fair number of them, and I'm sure is interested in doing, and some things that he's done are not indicative of that he's interested in historic preservation. I mean, keeping the facade of the house is not historic preservation.
Mhm.
If you go in and then you know,
I agree.
I mean, a classic example of what was not historic preservation was done by the former chairman of the Historic Preservation Committee in terms of his own house. So we have, but I'm not sure what people want.
I think the inventories and what we've done so far is a very good first couple of steps.
And
But we'll see what the new chair brings
Yeah.
to the table. Anyone else? Okay. Could I get a motion to open to the public regarding historic preservation?
So moved.
Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Tam? Well, we got to open it to the public
Oh,
first,
I-
right?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
There is another step to do. The current historic preservation ordinance establishes the historic preservation.
Mike? For our
establishes
studio
the
audience at
Historic
home.
Preservation Committee and says what they should be doing. It does not say anything about protecting the architectural integrity of the buildings within the historic districts. That's because there are no standards or guidelines, which is what we about last
Mm-hmm.
time. First step is to decide whether you want standards or guidelines. And I had suggested, I thought guidelines was better.
And would we decide that, or would the Historic Preservation Committee decide?
Well, governing body would
Governing
decide.
body.
The governing body.
Can I jump in
needs
a
to give us
second too?
direction. Yeah.
Didn't last year, when I was on, I believe, a liaison, you suggested guidelines, like, and it was not, the committee was not open, not the historic committee was not open to it, right?
No,
I mean,
they were open to it, and I gave them sample ordinances to start with. But what I was told by the chair at the time was that there was really nobody on the committee who could then take that information and run with it and create the set of standards that we could include into the ordinance.
So that's what the previous chair of the committee told to you, that nobody on their historic preservation committee could do anything.
Was able to run with it, right. The problem is, without guidelines or standards, when an application for a property within a historic district comes before this board has no jurisdiction to comment on the design of the buildings. And if we can't design the buildings, or help design the buildings and have some influence on the design of the buildings, it's gonna be very easy for those historic districts to look less and less historic over time. So the next step is to take the information that we've collected
Mhm.
and use that as a basis to establish, I would say probably guidelines for historic districts. That would be the next step. It can be done.
Is the historic board full with members, or are there alternates? I don't know if there's
Yeah,
any openings.
we have alternates, it's a
Okay.
full board right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a different board than it was a year
Right,
ago.
they might
I mean,
be
there might be, yeah, and I know we have at least, we have Dave Harding on it, who's from the county, he's involved with historic, who wasn't before, Kenna Larson as an alternate, and she has, I believe, a degree in historic preservation or architectural, so,
Well, and they might have
there's new,
access to resources, even if they're not architects, like.
Correct,
Like Dave
yes.
Harding is gonna know.
yeah, he's
about-
great, yeah, and, John Allen too.
Yeah, why don't we tell them that we're interested in them developing guidelines and give them a timetable, say, within the next 6 months, at least giving some guidelines, so we.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, and that would be then added to the current historic preservation ordinance.
yeah,
Yep.
do that.
Thank you, Tam.
Mhm, thank you.
Thank you.
Oops. Anyone else from the public? Come on, Linda.
Linda Raft, East Hamilton citizen. When I think about the historical committee and the historical houses and the historical district, I'm thinking of the planning board being more the general. In other words, the planning board wouldn't be the one who are defining which are historical buildings or anything.
Correct.
I don't see them as holding the inventory for the historical buildings. I see that our historical preservation committee should be handling the specifics, and we should write the general ordinance that says, if this is a historical building, these are the things that, the plans and the guidelines and whatever you want to call it. But I don't see the planning board getting deeply involved with identifying what are historical buildings, what are all of that area. I'm sort of making a big, that's it.
Well, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think that's why we have those historical districts established already, right?
Right. Right. And in London, we do have it posted on the township website of at least the inventory, which is a good thing, versus
But see, I
in a
don't
box
think
somewhere.
The planning board needs to have the
We don't, but I
Right.
think it's
The
good for the
town-
township.
Township posted it.
I
Right,
agree
yeah.
with you,
Yeah.
and I think the historical committee should be responsible for that, keeping it maintained, answering questions, doing all of that type of thing. And I think we should be taking from the historical committee what we, as I said, again, general, broad. If it's a historical building, this applies.
Mhm.
I don't have to know what that historical building is.
Well, I think the other thing that we can't forget is that what I learned last time we had this discussion is that it's not just a particular structure that's historical. It's if you're in the historical district, then certain rules apply.
Mhm.
And I think Tam's point is right, that we need to have guidelines for what that is, and so that this board has jurisdiction to make sure that that's consistent.
Yeah, and to answer, to go back to what you were saying, what my understanding of this is, just, Richard is the liaison and gives an update on what's going on there. The same way, Marnie gives an update on what's going on in the Environmental Commission. So that the planning board knows what's going on. We're not, dictating or getting into that, but we do have an interest in it, obviously. Just like we have an interest in what's going on in other areas. So I don't think the planning, I don't think we're going there.
Okay. Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Last one for unfinished business. All right, time to come up with the new subcommittee tasks. What I really want to do, now the warehouses is almost knocked out completely, is
Where's that list?
recommendations for the 2023 re-examination report. Number 8, remove regulations from definition sections of the land use code. I'd like to work on that one next. Anybody else want to join me on that?
I would join.
I don't have a
Dante?
copy. Okay, here we go. Thank you.
Oh, do you need a copy? I'm sorry. You
I'll
can
have
share?
one, thankfully.
Is this the priorities list
Yeah,
folder?
yeah.
Yeah,
Just in case. You guys have them?
This one is.
yeah, this is, you maybe you weren't. This is like the,
Oops.
take
Almost
the
took out your
master plan, the
microphone.
whole list, just remember, you were here, now it comes back, yeah. Now it comes back.
Yeah, so I'd like to work on one subcommittee, do number 8. I raised my hand for that one. Dante raised his hand for that. Anybody else want to join on number 8?
What's this one, number 8?
The remove regulations from the definition section of the land use code.
That's the one we were looking at that list.
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
Yeah.
I'm happy to work on that one, but are there other ones that we want to work on? Like, do we want to say, like, here's the next 2 or 3, or are we?
Yes,
just taking
next
it?
2 or 3, but,
So, see which other one. maybe-
Yes.
Yeah.
and I'm open to suggestions on the other 1 or 2. And I'll leave that to the board, and Alexis, if you have any recommendations?
Can you pass us a list?
Yes, ma'am.
I think I
Yeah,
have to.
sorry.
No, it's okay. Here.
So some of these have we knocked out,
Mhm.
number 7,
Yep.
or do we want to say?
Well, I think
we did the-
number
we did-
7 is going to be always an ongoing thing with stormwater, because the state of New Jersey might have X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
to say, so. The
And
warehouse
revise.
one, it will be completed once I send that memo up to Township Committee, and then they have the review. I mean, by the end of the year, that should be done.
Yeah, and are 8 or 9?
Dark
very-
skies.
Very related. I'm hearing from the public on which ones are most important. We heard from the public at all on which ones are most important? Did we ever have that conversation?
No. But most of the stuff that the public has talked about is already on
Yeah.
these.
It's really the ones that are most timely, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's-
how we jumped on the warehouse.
That's
one.
why, that's exactly, the ones that we, it was like sort of what can we knock out?
Well-
Or which has a ticking or time consideration, and I'm kind of like looking at these.
Well, I noticed the utility companies coming by and trimming all the trees for the power lines. I mean, that could be something we could consider for number 24, review and improve tree replacement ordinances, or tree clearing.
I don't
You know,
think
might
we
be
have any-
low-hanging fruit.
I don't think we have any, I don't want to speak out of turn. Dante can correct me, but I believe the power company has sort of almost unlimited power when it comes to trees.
Yeah.
Correct?
That's true. I mean, they control the right of way, and
Yeah.
so they cut. I mean, they actually asked me to do a contract for my place, and I looked at it, what it was, and the only thing I could say was that I didn't want pesticides sprayed when they did the cutting. But, I mean, because they have the right from the
The-
DEP
yeah,
to
they-
keep the lines from being
But I think
impacted.
we have identified that our tree replacement ordinance
Could use some
is
work.
a mess, basically.
We can review it, that's why it's,
Completely aside
that's why it's,
from
right.
Yeah, I
what
mean,
the-
whatever people think are significant, yeah.
So
It's open to the board.
I'm curious about the grandfather lot provision and why that's on here and what the importance of that one is. Is that something, I don't remember why that was there. And I'm wondering if it's something that is going to bite us if we don't look at, and also, there's there's related to that one, there's 36 and 31. These all seem like some sort of definition. Like I look at, let's see, 8 and 9, and that feels like one set that could be knocked out. And then there's the grandfather lot, the minor frontage subdivision activity, and the corner lot that all feel like, maybe they belong together. I could be wrong on that one, because I'm not an expert. And we don't need to decide this, we could get some input on that one, but I just putting it out there.
Yeah, Emily, I'm looking at the re-exam right now, and the recommendation specifically is add notes to the bulk charts for each zone referencing the grandfathered lots provisions that are included in the text of the ordinance. It's not kind of,
So there's a whole bunch of these on here that seem like they're cleanup of the
Yeah.
ordinances.
yeah, I think that's really all it is.
Maybe we should go through this offline and with your help, or even go back and look at them what's and put them all together and say we have a,
search in the master plan, then you can.
and then we can
Right.
just have like an ordinance cleanup
That's-
plan, and I'll sign up for that with you two.
Okay.
It's tedious work.
Oh, no. No, yeah. I said yes, right, but yes, of course.
Okay. So I guess we'll,
And then we can come back and say which ones of these knock that out.
okay.
And then I had one other question. I know, I'm sorry for taking so much time up here. There's one on view shed. It says create an ordinance on view shed, and I'm bringing that one up because that seems like a bigger, more impactful, and possibly if we don't do something, we could end up with something in front of us that we are not all that interested in, that's inconsistent with the vision. And so I have no idea where we would start on that. It just feels like something that we might want to look at.
I think that is a good point, and I think we'd ask our planner for some help with that, because, I mean, there are sort of view shed sorts of ordinances and, like, best kind of practice things. I don't recall what they are, but that's a good point, because, I mean, having the Sauerland Mountain and all the beautiful farms, so.
This one particularly mentions AVAD, right? So
Yeah.
you've got those beautiful rolling hills in certain areas, and I'm imagining that the goal is to avoid very large
Something.
obstructions, and I have no idea how we would approach that, if we could approach it, like what are, I'm just noticing things that you can't, I'm looking at these and saying
Can't
undo. So there's like the trees, the
Mhm.
view shed, and then the cleanup. I'm putting these into like buckets.
It's a good point.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we can brainstorm. You guys can email me what you think, and we can bring it up on the next November's meeting.
And one
Time
thing,
flies.
I think with the view, sorry if I
Go ahead.
could, I think with the view sheds too, we could start looking at that with the farmland preservation plan, because a lot of that's gonna be looking at what's already preserved and targeting certain farms, to complete those big landscapes, so that's, I think, one way we can start looking at it, and paying attention to do that kind of stuff as we develop the plan.
And that actually raises a really good point that I keep meaning to ask. Do we have a plan, are we planning to look at that Ammo Valley Ag District?
It's
Yeah, that's
on the
on
list,
the
yeah.
list, yeah.
Because that's not a small.
No,
Yeah.
no.
The
No.
key piece to the entire valley is on the market right now. There's a 100-acre flag lot that Bryce Thompson family owns, and it's a 100-acre flag lot. You can build one house on it. It's totally undevelopable. Bryce has been trying for 40 years, and if Bryce couldn't do it, nobody can do it. And on the other hand, you know, it's sitting there, and the rest, it's surrounded by preserved farmland, for thousands of acres of preserved farmland, but it's sitting right in the center there. I mean, I know that Bryce tried to sell it to me, and I said, I don't really want any more land, and I don't want any more farm. You know, I'm already letting a farmer farm 15 acres of my land to get a piece of paper to qualify for farmland assessment. You know, and there's no. And the truth of the matter is, a farmer would pay probably $5,000 to $6,000 an acre for farmland, and he wants. They want 2 or 3 times that, 2 times that much is the last number I heard. But I don't know that, you know, I don't know that East Amwell has some money in its budget to buy it.
It's not preserved?
What? No, it's not preserved.
I mean, on that thought, I think, you know, maybe you can grab some of us after the meeting if there's a particular parcel, but on the overall, I mean, I think to Marnie's point, you know, Ag Valley and the Sarowlands are both important ones, they're just bigger tasks. So I think Al's suggestion is a good one, that folks think about what they want to work on for November, and we start on those, but those are both large ones.
Yeah, because this will be going on for months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just gotta keep working through it.
Absolutely, I agree. Any other?
And the only reason I mentioned that one is just to think about it early, because it's gonna involve some budget considerations. So you guys are gonna wanna have some idea before you start that process all over again.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's open this one to the public. Can I get a motion to open a public on the next to-do list?
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Linda, I saw your hand come up even before we were open.
Why would I miss one, right?
Absolutely.
Linda Brown, East Amwell residents. I went through the 45 items that we had on there. Did you show anybody what I wrote up?
No, I did not.
Okay. Just to give you a quick thing on how, because I'm doing pretty much what you're going to do. I said I wanted to tell you the guidelines that I went through. When you're going to be going through these items, you might use the same guidelines. I avoided any projects that would affect or rely on the JCP electrical grid until it is available. That was just at the point that I started this, we'd had some bad information about it. I avoided any projects that needed county-state cooperation unless they initiated it and provided support. So we have some that are, you know, affect the county roads. Well, I got news for you. We don't own the county roads, so I took them out. I avoided any projects that required money from East Amwell that hadn't been allocated in the budget, and identify the source of the money before we initiated the project, if it required money. Also, questioned whether we had enough resources at this time to do it. And I think that's what you're doing now. You're picking out individual items, so you're not saying we're going to attack 45 of them at once. I identified other East Amwell committees and commissions if it was appropriate for them to allocate their resources and time, which is sort of like what I was talking about, the historical committee. And I did that through a number of these. And I went for quick hit items first to shorten our list, because to me that was the most important thing. I've given Al a copy of everything I've got here, so it is available for you to see. But the only thing I wanted to bring up while we were all very tired is I wanted to eliminate. Develop plans for improving the state of septic systems in the Ringgoes area. Is that really a planning board problem? I don't see it as a planning board problem. Develop a system of backup power for the municipal building. Is that a planning board problem? Secure funding to mitigate impacts on residential homes in flood-prone areas. Is this a planning board problem? Survey roads and bridges for potential risk of flood damage. A lot of those roads and bridges may not belong to us at all. Develop a plan to respond to disease outbreak events. I would think that something like that would be more of a county, a state, not East Anwell Planning Board. Develop, draft, and adopt a disaster debris management plan. And I'm saying, is this state or county? I don't see it, our planning board. Now, I have this whole thing that I wrote up, it's 4 pages. I did think about it. I told Al when I did it, by the time I got to the end of the 45 items, my brain was like on. But if he wants to pass it around to any of you, that is something that one of your East Amwell citizen thinks about the items we have for the planning board.
And I'll absolutely
Thank
share
you.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify too,
Go
a lot
ahead.
of those items, they're on this master sheet on the back, a lot of them are included in the master plan typically for grant purposes, so that, a lot of the times these grants say, or, is this project consistent with the master plan, and they're here to say, yes, they are, and you get extra points for that, so that's usually what they're
Extra
for.
points are good. Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing none. Could I get a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Items for discussion, the invoices. Everybody reviewed the invoices, Parker McKay and then Megan's group. Any questions about that? Okay, can I get a motion to approve and pay for those 2 invoices?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on, oral reports. Mr. Mills for farmland and open space.
All right, so Megan's group finished the maps and they've been sent over to us. We've notified everyone on the ag board. I don't know if anyone's reviewed it, but on Wednesday, we'll go through them at the meeting, just so I can make sure everyone has time to do that. And then we'll notice at next meeting for November. And
That's
no,
great.
no other, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I-
great.
It happened very
Accomplished
fast.
the
Thanks for
huge,
getting
yes.
that done.
And that will be the 2 meetings, right? Because you have to review it for 2 meetings, right?
2 public meetings, right?
Oh.
So,
So November will be the first public.
right?
Got it,
Is-
okay.
Yeah.
Right, and then the hearing to adopt it.
Then we have the hearing, yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's it from Prospect. No other things to report.
Thank you. You accomplished a lot this year.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Environmental Commission, Marnie.
We meet next week.
Okay. Ag Advisory, back to you.
Nothing else with Ag Advisory.
Okay. HPC, Rich, anything?
Here we go.
Richard, anything for historical preservation, or we talked out on that one?
I think we've talked out
Okay,
on that one.
moving right along, Township Committee. Anything?
I think we've given you all of our stormwater.
Yeah.
All right. Planning Board Secretary,
No news to report.
and I'm not going to say anything because we've been talking quite a bit. I think we have also accomplished quite a bit today. Could I get a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public?
Nothing more to say, thank you.
All right. Could I get a motion to close to the public?
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Last one is the correspondence from our attorney, which is on the drive, and it's also here, and the Township Committee will be seeing this in the very near future. Anyone have any questions for Alexis on this one?
We need to do the consistency review vote, though.
So we can do that if it's necessary, but I think what we did
Yeah.
was fine.
Okay.
As long as that we all are an understanding that it was for, everyone agrees that it was for consistency.
For all 3 of those ordinances.
Well, so that was one thing I wanted to make sure we did clear up too, now that we're at the end. So with the 3 stormwater, are they going to the committee with recommendations, or are they gonna be
That's what I
held
wanted to.
for, I just wanna make sure we're on the same page for.
I was proposing that we send them to the committee.
We're gonna send it to committee,
with
then we
the
can-
proviso that we recommend that Township Committee talks to the engineer to see if there's flexibility.
Okay.
So that's how I.
Got it, yep, so
Absolutely.
then all 4 ordinances are in the same position then, so the 3 stormwater and the one regarding the removal of the warehousing from the parking. They're recommended for master plan consistency with the recommendations from the planning board, but ultimately determined, based on our conversation earlier, that they are consistent with the master plan.
They are, thank you.
As long as
Just
everyone's
wanted to
in
make sure-
agreement, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I
Yeah, I was
figured
gonna
out where we
clarify.
ended up. I was like a little confused.
Thanks for clarifying.
All right. Last but not least, can I get a motion to adjourn the October 16th, 2023 meeting?
Motion.
Second. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all. I will see you in November.
And what's the update on your daughter?
And check your emails too, to see.
You know how bad I was itching to look at my phone during the
I
meeting?
know, I was like, all of a sudden I realized, wait a second, he's trying to get out of here.
Yeah, it's like,
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I would have been quiet the whole time.
no, it's all good. I turned off my phone just in case, you know, I didn't hit silent.
So far, no grandchild?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
This is, number 2.
Oh, that's it.
My
I would
oldest daughter
I would actually say,
has a great day for her birthday.
Do you hear this, Cole? Do you hear this? From my granddaughter. A month.
think about it, if they're, all the lights
A
have to
month.
be turned off by 11.
Little
and the only thing
cute little
they have
petri
to do
dish
is
of
turn the light
germs.
on a timer.
So my
Now you're
daughter,
immune to everything.
my daughter might fall for that.
Maybe we just say
It's true,
that,
too.
and then, I think in the.
It's not contagious apparently after this
See
long.
general section. It's
not
Then we
contagious.
just say, you know,
Or else I wouldn't have been
you
here.
write something like,
Everyone is sick right now.
to avoid confusion, you know, lights, dawn to dusk light, that is, a light that you turn on at dusk, is like are prohibited. And that way it's for avoidance of doubt. You say for avoidance of doubt.
We are allowed to.
These type of, and that way everybody knows. You already said you couldn't have it, but just so you avoid, avoidance of doubt is really clear. So I think you're right, you have it.
You have it?
And then,
Yeah, I didn't have the soft copy anymore.
I'm sure there are some ordinances that have signs, but because I remember having a long year about it, but we could also do it here. What I think this is what I'm guessing, what I'm really.
So our process water goes into a tank. Septic every yeah. And so right now that
Stay open.
limiting factor. And we got to figure out what can we conserve on the.
Well, I think these are identification and advertisement signs.
yeah, I don't know.
Right, so if I understood this correctly, this was to identify what building it is and advertise their business, so you know, Starbucks, 11 to Route 202.
That's cool.
So,
I mean, we have to update all the stuff going into it. You know,
That's like a 24-hour. I mean, I know we don't know one now.
I mean, what,
You could get a variance.
yeah, I think, you're right, I think variance would work, and I also think that we would want is, like, you see, like, the example I always use is, out when I grew up in eastern Long Island, I remember in Southampton, you know, it's this nice little rural town like this.
well, yeah, it
It's like the McDonald's, you couldn't tell it was McDonald's because there's no plastic cars. And so if we had like a business, like let's say there was a emergency clinic opened up next to Dave's Sunoco, I think what we'd say is have a like a 3x3 sign and have a downward facing light right on it. And
Now, I always forget that this doesn't mean it can't absolutely happen, it just means they have to consult with us before they, yeah, I think it's fine.
okay, yeah,
Not worried about it.
oh, thanks for working on it. Yeah, it's confusing. It's a lot to tie together, but I think I like you making it clear and see that this applies to everything. And because if you think of it that way, you have all the major stuff there, and then the rest are individual stuff.
And also, I think there can be less of the individual stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
like if there's something that you read.
that's really good. Thanks for working on it. There's a lot there. So you get it's not that fun sometimes, right? When it's that detailed, it drives me
Well, and
crazy.
it's also,
Not yet, no. So she's been in
the
labor
other
for
thing
11
that
hours.
happens is like when I first looked at it, and this is actually considered
Yeah,
very,
yeah. Just I feel for her.
ordinances, when you first look at it, it doesn't make any sense at all. And then after you look